Question, sir. And by the way, if there are in fact any women in the room, it would be nice to hear from you. Okay, scoot up to the front of the line, sir. You've got a man bun. That's close enough. Okay, we're transitioning here.
I do identify as male, and I suspect I will continue to do so. I hope that doesn't disappoint
Fair enough.
anybody
Okay,
here.
ask your question.
Thank you very much to both of you. This has been very thought-provoking. I have two short questions, primarily
Just
for Gene,
ask
but
one.
Roger,
Pick what. This is Sophie's choice time. Pick one of those questions because the other one's not going to make it.
Is economic growth ever undesirable, i.e., does it ever lead to increased suffering either domestically or abroad? And what are we going to do with AI when it happens in about 20 or 30 years and nobody has jobs?
Very good, sir. Okay, either of you. Richard?
Absolutely. We do not prioritize, or we ought not, if that's your question, to prioritize economic growth as if it's a unidimensional plus. It can be, as we learned from ecological sensitivities built up over the last 30 years, that it can be a very dangerous and negative phenomena. But in a society that allows the decision of what to produce and what to invest in to be done on the basis of a private profit calculation, you are hardly in a position to bring in all of those other issues that have to be dealt with. I remember in my education, I was taught a bizarre language which gives it away, that we should remember, our teachers told us, externalities. What a wonderful term, something that isn't central to what we're dealing with. It's an externality, only slowly to discover that the externality can be more negative than what's internal is positive. Capitalism sanctifies the profit motive. The socialism alternative has always said profit is one among a whole range of objectives, and no decisions should be made based on any one when all the others are equally important to the quality of life.
Thank you. Gene?
Well, I guess then I won't answer the question about artificial intelligence, since that was the second question. Again, obviously, excuse me? Well, can I answer both questions? I don't know what.
Answer one.
Okay. Well, I got the moderator.
We got to
rules.
leave some people behind.
We'll talk later, sir. Okay. It'll be fun to talk about AI. But with respect to economic growth, again, first of all, no. There's obviously I am an individual. I'm a libertarian. I don't believe there's anything the least bit sacred about economic growth. If people, basically, by the way, if we all decided that we would prefer to work 20 hours a week, then that labor-leisure choice would begin to prevail. Capitalists would only get us to work for them. We'd be willing to only work part-time. And we'd say, well, we'll work for a little bit less so that it's advantageous to employ two of us for 20 hours a week rather than one person for 40. So then we would have a diminution of resources. We would have a shrinkage of the economy. Wonderful. Why not? If people only want to work 20 hours a week, then we can compete. We can compete. I perhaps want to explain to Richard, because the simple math is that if full-time workers get $20 an hour, then we'll just work for $18 part-time. They'll get two of us for less. So therefore, we can opt for living less. We make those choices all the time. What's a Jewish lawyer? A kid who couldn't get into medical school. Well, I'm Jewish. I didn't become a lawyer or a doctor. I chose to be a sloppy-ass journalist. I dropped that. So therefore, we make those choices all the time. It's an individual choice. There is nothing sacred about economic growth. With respect to diseconomy, externalities, we are individuals. We have individual freedom. You can't throw garbage on your neighbor's lawn, however. My right to move my fist stops at your chin. And if a capitalist is polluting your backyard and causing that harm, you should sue him. So therefore, we do need a tort system in order to protect against any individual choice, anything that a firm does, or indeed that an individual does, in order to make sure that they don't harm us in the process of pursuing their own goals. That's the best brief answer.
Okay, thank you. Richard, quick rebuttal.
I really find it extraordinary, this sort of commentary. If we would like to work only shorter hours, The history of capitalism is the history of the struggle of the mass of working people to reduce the length of the working day from the 16 hours it was in early capitalism in England to 14, to 12, to 10, to 8. It's been a struggle at every point. Capitalists driving people, children as well as adults, to work incredible hours, workers having to mobilize and fight. This is not a matter of the libertarian notion, let's just choose. That's not the way the world worked. It hasn't worked that way in the past, and it doesn't work now. That's a system that imposed those struggles and all the suffering that went into it until people said, no more. We won't work that many hours. We won't let you have our children when they're 6. That's the history of capitalism, and we're not even counting all the injuries and all the deaths in that game of counting human suffering from a system.
I suggest that Richard read a book called by Stanley Lebergott, which is a whole history of the labor markets, of the capitalist markets, and it's got a lot of good facts in it. Now, I believe that one of the things that Richard should try to answer is how was there a whole lot of progress? Why was there so much immense progress by laborers from 1870 to 1925? Or indeed, he says that wages were rising for decades, and the unions statistically were negligible. Government was on. May I finish? Wasn't on this. No, I want to end with one fact. There was a 49-hour work week. Capitalists have 49-hour work week as of the 1920s, as Lebergott shows. The work week fell. The work week fell because in order to get workers to work for you, to bid for workers, their labor leisure choice was such that they wanted. There is a Marxist myth that there is an inequality, no equality between bargaining between laborers and workers. Well, that's belied by about 100 years of history before unions became the least bit of a presence in this economy.
Thank you. Okay. Ma'am, please, question.
We're currently in an opioid crisis, and the World Health Organization ranks our healthcare system 37th in the world. Do you think it's still possible for our current system to